everyone, and welcome back to Culture Central Sports. We are celebrating Women's History Month, and in honor of this, we have a very special roundtable for you guys today. I'm Gigi Jones, and we at Culture Central are honored to be joined by two members of Minorities in Sports, Tenae Cook and our very own Chrissy Cobbs, along with sports specialists Jezenia Marrero and Mariah Elizondo, to discuss the growth of women in sports. So speaking of women in college sports, as we're all women in college, I first wanted to talk a little bit about the NIL and women's college sports as a whole. These numbers are crazy for the NIL deals. You've got people like Suncia Lee at Auburn, she's a gymnast, 1.5 million NIL evaluation. You've got people like Libby Dunn at LSU, $2.3 million. I think these numbers are absolutely incredible in terms of the growth of women and the access and the things that they're getting from the results of these deals. But Gisenia, I know that you have a special niche for this. I want to ask you a little bit about how you think of everything.
So personally, I love the idea of NIL. Some people don't think they really need to get paid because they're getting college funded, but in my opinion, I think it's great. At the end of the day, these universities are making millions, maybe billions of dollars from these players. So the fact that they're getting just a small percentage of that is really big for me. And if I was an athlete, I would love it. Angel Reese's NIL, I believe it's predicted to be 1.7 million, which is
that exact number.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool for her. And I don't think she's very greedy with her deals too. There was in February she got like Beats, and she gave them out to the men's basketball team, coaches, and her team. And I just feel like that's just her being so humble, who she really is. I love seeing that. What about you, Mariah?
I mean, she had over 17 NIL deals. Like, what can we say about that? It was last year, too. What can we say about this year? I mean, Caitlin Clark, now this year, all-time leading scorer for NCAA women's basketball. Now, all-time leading scorer NCAA basketball in general. What do you think that her deals are? Like, what do you have to say, Gigi or Chrissy? What do you guys think?
I mean, hers probably compared to Angel Reese, honestly. I know she has the State Farm commercial. I've seen that many times, but, you know, she's definitely making money. In general, I love the way that women's college basketball has been evolving. I think the competitiveness is at an all-time high. Specifically, I think players are a lot more dominant in this era. People like Juju Watkins, she's averaging 27 points a game, which is crazy because she's a freshman. And then she also plays defense and she gets rebounds, right? So she's the most complete player and she's a freshman. And then like you said, Caitlin Clark, I mean, she's the all-time leading scorer in NCAA D1 basketball, right? Men or women. So it's amazing to see college basketball right now.
I could definitely add on to say that it's really amazing. I'm excited for what women in sports will look like, and I see that it's translating onto sports analysts and shows. They're beginning to say that they're excited to see the women's Final Four, even more excited to see it than the men's Final Four. And I think with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese being seniors, I think it will translate into the WNBA. But there's still talent in NCAA D1 Division I basketball. We have South Carolina. We also have Paige Beckers from UConn. So I'm just excited to see the future.
Definitely. And speaking of those dominant players, I think that's an attest to what the WNBA is doing. You know, moving to the next level, their viewership is up 27% from last year. I have here that it's the highest since 2008. It's 2024. That's over a decade. So I just think about this is a true testament to not only the women in the WNBA, but how the game is played. You know, they're getting the attention they deserve, and it's long overdue in my personal opinion. And today you talked a little bit about this. I wanna know what you think of it further, because I think it's. I mean, you see people like the Aces. They have the highest viewership in the league. You're starting to hear about their players. You're starting to hear about other women in the WNBA on a more regular forum, like the way you hear about a Steph Curry or a LeBron James. So what do you think about that?
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that the Aces were actually the first WNBA team to sell out their season. And I'm excited for May 14th. That's when the season starts, so I'll be tuned in. Growing up, my dad really encouraged me to watch Breanna Stewart Aja Wilson when they were playing in college at South Carolina and UConn back when I used to play basketball. So it's really nice to see the transition in that they're getting viewership now in their professional careers. The WNBA is also opening up their draft to 1,000 fans for the first time in 8 years. So I think people are excited about the future of the WNBA and the players in it.
Yeah, Tenae talks about, growing up watching basketball. And like me personally, I watched the WNBA, and, you've got legends like Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and they really paved the way for these new era of women coming in playing basketball. And now, I mean, you've got, Aja Wilson on the Aces. She's so dominant. And you got Sabrina Ionescu, who is taking over. So all of these players are just extremely talented, and they're passionate, and they use their social media and platforms to really evolve the game and gain more fans. So it's been amazing to watch.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you guys. You both talked about the viewership of the Las Vegas Aces. And I also read that too, that they were the first women's NBA team to sell out season tickets. There are football stadiums that can't even sell out their season tickets. So for them to make that history, especially in a women's sport, is very elite.
I mean, we can talk about this any day, every single day, but we can go past this from WNBA. I mean, we can go into jobs, actually. I mean, how many women are working in the NFL? I actually looked at today. I think there's 223 women. I mean, we also all have jobs in sports, too. I mean, does anyone want to talk about that?
Before we go there, I wanna talk about, you mentioned Sabrina. And I couldn't help but think about Sabrina and Steph, that just happened, that's new, that's current. It was 29-26. Steph only won by 3 points. I don't know if you guys have been on Twitter recently, but a lot of people before the challenge they were hating on my girl Sabrina. They didn't believe that she could shoot from the NBA line. They didn't believe that she had what it took to compete against Steph in the challenge. And I think, again, it speaks for the WNBA, what they're able to do, what women are able to do, and that a lot of times the reason that women aren't given the platforms, aren't given the opportunities that they deserve is because they don't have the platforms. And I think Steph taking the initiative to say, Sabrina's a good player, I want to challenge her, I think that says a lot. So what do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. That was phenomenal. Even to think that we have an NBA player and a women's NBA player doing this competition, it's like years ago we weren't seeing things like that. So seeing that was incredible to watch. It just shows how society is really changing for a better perspective and good reasonings, especially for women. And even the money that was raised through this, it was given to was for economic empowerment in the Black community, which was really cool to see. Just them really empowering people of color and just showing off their capabilities.
I agree. I think it was really refreshing to see Sabrina versus Steph during the skills challenge. I honestly just wish it wasn't during an all-star weekend. That to me fell really flat. But Sabrina finished with a score of 26, which was actually a tie with Damian Lillard, who had won the three-point contest earlier that night. To me, that further proves the point that there is talent amongst women basketball players.
Yeah, and I'd also like to point out the fact that she shot from the men's three-point line. And it's a big difference when you go from women to men's. I mean, you may not recognize or realize it if you don't play or watch basketball, but it makes a big difference. And her first rack, I thought it was over because she did not miss. And I was like, yeah, I mean, she's got it. And Steph Curry's first rack, I think he missed most shots, if not all.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, is she about to take this home? But then you got to remember, like, Steph Curry is the best shooter ever.
Right.
So, I mean, he came in clutch. He did what he had to do. But, yeah, it was fun to watch.
Seeing that turnaround was a little devastating, I'm not going to lie.
It
but
was.
At least she did what she needed to do.
She did. And Mariah, you mentioned women in the front office, women internships, women jobs in sports. I know all of us have internships and we're just in college. And I think as somebody in the position that has seen women and men working in the sports industry on the D1 level, I can definitely say I've seen a lot more women in the space than I've talked to my superiors who say that the numbers have grown exponentially in recent years. We have more women analysts like ourselves. We have more women in marketing, in communications. And I think it's something that it's really important to talk about, not necessarily women on the court or the field, but also the women, working in the offices, working behind closed doors, working late hours, working long hours. I think it's something that we should really touch on, because I think, especially in media, sports is big, but a big part of sports is what happens behind the scenes. So what do you guys think about that? And I can speak from personal experience.
I mean, honestly, it's a motivator for me because I am someone who does want to work in sports. I mean, we have like clubs like MIS, we have clubs like Awesome, we have people in Culture Central. They're constantly bringing in other guest speakers to motivate ourselves. We're networking with them, we're speaking with them. They're consistently inspiring us to be in sports as well.
I agree. Something that we highlight in Minorities in Sports is speaking with women in the sports industry. And I think it's really inspiring to hear that their voices are now being heard. Alexis McKinney was one of my favorite speakers, and she let us know about her work at the Portland Trailblazers and that she personally built up the DEI section. So it's important for us for not only us as women, but us as Black women, to be supported by the companies that we work for, especially in the sports industry.
Yeah, I mean, you see more women now in executive positions as vice presidents and stuff for major professional sports. And I'd specifically like to highlight in the MLB, more women are now in front offices than ever. And specifically, I know for the Padres, Caroline Perry, she's the highest ranking executive in San Diego Padres history. So it's just amazing to see women just continue to evolve in sports and get in these major positions.
It's truly beautiful. And I think even more beautiful is having these conversations with one another. We're all so young, and we have so little time left here at Penn State, it feels like, but I can only imagine what all of you are going to do in only a few years. So as fun as this has been, we have to say goodbye. I'd like to thank our amazing guests from Minorities in Sports for being here with us today, and wish you guys a happy Women's History Month. Make sure to stay tuned for more sports content from us. I'm Gigi Jones, and for the culture, we are Culture Central.